Today is going to be the last video of the 5-part series of me ranking the top 10 of each position currently in the NBA, and this has been a fun series. And today, the last video, we've got the centers video, and this ranking, especially right now, is so interesting and my favorite list to make probably, and so interesting that earlier in the year, a few months ago, I made a top 10 centers list just on its own, and now I'm coming back to this one to see how they compare to each other. I have made a few changes since I made that list, and we do have to keep in mind here that for the centers, we have a little bit of a different criteria here because I'm going to be valuing defense a lot more than I have for any of the other positions. Defense is obviously the most important for the center position. They're the defensive anchor of their team most of the time, and they're the interior defenders and rim protectors. So defense is really going to factor in a lot more than it has here. It's pretty much going to be as important as offense in this ranking. So we've got a bit of a different criteria here, and without further ado, let's get into the list. As always, just like I did for all of the other positions, starting off with my 5 honorable mentions from 15 to 11 on my list, I've got Jarrett Allen, Chris Boucher, Kristaps Porzingis, Jusuf Nurkic, and Miles Turner. At number 10, I've got Jonas Valanciunas. Just yesterday, as I'm recording this video, it was announced that Valanciunas is being traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, and I actually think he'll fit in pretty well here. If he continues to develop the three-point shot of his, that's going to be good for spacing alongside Zion, a big upgrade from Steven Adams there, and he's going to provide a lot of consistent rebounding for this team. But we know that this year, Jonas really had a career year. He provided a lot for the Memphis Grizzlies and was probably their second best player other than Ja Morant, and we know that he obviously does a lot of work down low in the paint, down low in the post, and averaged 17 points per game this season on 59% from the field, a lot of those buckets coming around the rim, and him just being a classic big man and dominating down there. It's tough for you to win a matchup against Jonas Valanciunas if you're going to be the opposing team's big man, just because of his sheer strength and dominance on the inside, and especially when it comes to rebounding too, averaging around 12.5 rebounds per game this season, and being one of the most dominant and consistent rebounders in the league. Defensively, I think he did really well this season as well. The Grizzlies had one of the best defenses in the league, and Jonas is probably slightly above average defensively, and he did a decent job as the defensive anchor for this team. Number 9, I've got Christian Wood. Now, Christian Wood ranks 7 on my original list, and the only reason I'm moving him down a little bit here is because in the playoffs, I think some guys surpassed him a little bit, and he's not great defensively. He's definitely improved his defense this year, but there's a lot of guys that I just squeaked ahead of him on this list because of their elite defense compared to his mediocre defense, and on the inside, he does a decent job of protecting the rim and defending the post. But sometimes he's not aware when he's defending off ball, and he needs to develop a little bit more awareness and also just strength when going up against really strong big men on the inside. Now, when we look at his offensive game, if it was just offense alone, Christian Wood is definitely a top 7, maybe even top 6 or 5 center in the NBA right now. He's very good at scoring in the rim. Don't let his skinny frame fool you because he's a dominant player in the post. He does a great job of playing bully ball down there, also getting himself mismatches, and is very, very good in the pick and roll. He's great at rolling to the basket and getting easy baskets around the rim. Scored 21 points per game this season on 50% from the field, and developed a pretty consistent three-point shot as well, shooting 37.5% from 3 on 5 attempts per game, along with a 59% true shooting. So overall, he's very efficient, dominant offensively, just needs to add some more defense to his game, off-ball defense, and playmaking to rank a little bit higher on this list. Number 8, I've got Nikola Vucevic, and this might seem a little bit low for Vucevic, and again, just like I said with Christian Wood, if we're talking about offense alone here, Nikola Vucevic is without a doubt probably in the top 5 of this list, but defensively, he can sometimes be a liability, especially when you put him in the pick and roll, and this is something that can happen when you're playing at the center position. You have to be good defensively, and this definitely does hurt his ranking a little bit here, especially when you compare him to some of the other elite defensive centers that I have moving up on the list here at 7, 6, and 5. But when we look at Nikola Vucevic's offensive game, putting up 23 points per game this season, one of the best in the league at the pick and pop, if not the very best, does a great job of running that play, popping out to the three-point line and shot a career-high 40% from 3 this season on 6 attempts per game, which is elite for a big man. He's one of the best offensive centers in the league, especially when it comes to scoring. He can score in the post too, down low in the mid-range, and especially from 3, like I mentioned with that pick and pop. He's also a decent passer passer, averaging 4 assists per game this season, and a beast on the glass as well, averaging almost 12 rebounds per game. So offensively, when you combine that with his rebounding ability as well, he's probably top 5, but his defense drops him a bit for sure. Number 7, I've got Clint Capella, and I think he's one of the most underrated players and centers in the NBA, and it might seem ridiculous that I'm ranking him over a guy like Vucevic or Christian Wood to some of you guys, but the reason Capella has to be at least this high on this list is his elite defense. When we look at his offense, he definitely plays his role very well on this side of the floor, and this has to factor into the ranking too. He's not as good offensively as the other guys that have this list, but still one of the best rebounders in the league, if not the very best rebounder in the league, grabbing tons of rebounds and averaging 14 a game this season, also averaging 15 points per game on 60% from the field. He's a very consistent lob threat and cleans up the glass, gets a lot of offensive rebounds, and gets a lot of easy buckets down low, and a pretty good playmaker too, especially when it comes to his screening ability, ranking top 20 in screen assists per game with around 4, and top 20 in points off of screen assists with around 9. But when we look at his defensive game, it's just simply elite. Capella was absolutely robbed of an all-defensive team this year. He absolutely should have made the second team over Joel Embiid, and his defense is just simply amazing, especially when we look in the playoffs what he did defensively, guarding Joel Embiid a ton one-on-one in that series against the Philadelphia 76ers, and being in the defensive anchor the entire season, really. A fantastic pick-and-roll defender, very good shot blocker and rim protector, and this is the most valuable type of defense in the NBA. Capella is one of the most valuable defensive anchors in the entire NBA, and because of this, he has to rank over guys like Vucevic and Wood. At number 6, I've got DeAndre Ayton, and on my original list, I think I ranked DeAndre either 9th or 10th on my list, and honestly, this was before I hadn't really watched him play a lot this season. After seeing his elite playoff performance and just what type of a player he is, I'm ranking him all the way up here at 6. He's definitely moved up the most of anyone on this list, and just his overall abilities are amazing. I made an entire video about DeAndre Ayton and his impact in the playoffs for the Phoenix Suns. You can go ahead and check that one out as well. I think this is a really good video that I made, but I talked about his overall ability. Overall, when it comes to scoring, he's extremely efficient, plays his role very well, getting buckets in the post, getting lobs at the rim, and cleaning up the glass. He shot 66% from the field in the playoffs, 63% from the field in the regular season, and consistently averages around 15 points per game. Rebounding, he was, especially in the playoffs, one of the top 5 rebounders in the entire NBA. Very good playmaker when it comes to screening, both in the regular season and the playoffs, ranking top 5 in screen assists and screen assist points, and very good defensively too. His defensive impact was showed so much in this playoffs, especially. The Phoenix Suns defense is completely different when he's off the floor, and he's a very effective defensive anchor. He has it all, everything that you need to be a classic traditional dominant big man. At number 5, I've got Rudy Gobert, and ever since Gobert got exposed defensively on the perimeter in that Game 6 against the Los Angeles Clippers in the second round, he's been getting a lot of hate from casual NBA fans that only watch a few games, but you have to realize if you watch Rudy Gobert play over the course of this entire season and actually watch NBA games instead of highlights, you'll realize he's still easily a top 5 defender in the league, if not probably top 3. I probably have him in my top 3, maybe even top 2 defensively. He's still an incredible pick and roll defender, the best interior defender in the game, still an amazing shot blocker. He can basically guard 2 guys at once when they're driving towards the rim in the pick and roll or towards the basket. I mean, he's just an incredible interior defender, and offensively, he's basically just like DeAndre Ayton, very, very efficient around the rim. He's a consistent lob threat and shot 68% from the field this season. A lot of easy baskets around the rim, but still plays his role perfectly. A great playmaker when it comes to screening. One of the best rebounders in the league, averaging almost 14 rebounds per game. But defensively, his impact is just still amazing, and with his elite interior defense. And just because of this, he still has to rank in the top 5. At number 4, I've got Karl-Anthony Towns, and Karl-Anthony Towns is easily a top 3 center when it comes to offense alone. One of the best talents in the league when it comes to scoring as a center, averaging 25 points per game this season. He has a very unique skill set. He's able to shoot the 3 better than almost any center in the entire game right now. This season, he shot 39% from 3 on around 7 attempts per game, which is obviously insane for a center, and also 61% true shooting, which is a +4 relative true shooting. And some of Cat's impact too isn't shown with the stats because he has a poor supporting cast. For example, he's a very good playmaker. He had a box creation this year of around 8, which is how many open shots you create per game. I really like to use this stat for playmaking. Also 5 assists per game, and he's a very good screener as well. So he's a great playmaker, combined with his elite offense, his elite scoring. He's probably a top 15 player in the league when it comes to just offense alone. But we got to talk about his defense here too. And I know a lot of people are saying that Cat is not as bad a defender as we think, but when you put him in certain situations, especially in the pick and roll, he can be at times a liability, and Cat needs to improve his defense before we can start ranking him in the top 3 of this list, in my opinion, and start putting him up there with the big dogs like Jokic and Embiid, because you need to be good as a center. He's pretty much the defensive anchor of this team, and sometimes lets his team down when he gets put in situations like the pick and roll. So in my opinion, he's got to improve that defense before we can start talking about him as one of the elite players in the NBA. At number 3, I've still got Bam Adebayo here, and it's a really close comparison between Bam and Cat, and it all depends on your values, especially at the center position. In my last centers video, I basically said the exact same thing. Offensively, Cat is clearly the better scorer, but really not by much. Bam still plays his role well when it comes to scoring, putting up 19 points per game this season, a very consistent lob threat, a pretty good playmaker too, and efficient when it comes to scoring, shooting 57% from the field, plays his role when it comes to a scoring center, and he's obviously a very good playmaking big man as well, averaging around 5 assists per game this season, a box creation of 6, and still a great screener. Cat and Bam are very similar playmakers. I'd say Cat is probably a slightly better playmaker, and it's not shown with his supporting cast, but offensively Cat's better, but the gap defensively is just too big for me to ignore here. Bam is one of the top 5 defenders in the NBA. He's an elite interior defender, probably the most versatile big man in the entire league. He can literally guard some of the best guards in the NBA at his 6'9" height, and still having that elite interior defense, and in my opinion is easily a top 5 defender compared to Cat's average defense at best, and sometimes a liability in certain situations. So the gap defensively is too big for me to not put Bam over Cat, but is extremely close when you balance out the offensive and defensive abilities of both of them. I actually have these guys right next to each other at 23 and 24 on my big top 50 list that I'll be releasing probably after this video. So it's very close comparison, but because of the defensive gap, I have to go with Bam still. And then 2 and 1, we got Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. Do I even have to go through any stats and evidence here? These guys were the top 2 MVP candidates this year, both incredible scorers, and again, it all depends what you value the most, and we really got to factor in playoff performance here and everything too. In my original video, I had Embiid over Jokic, which absolutely was a hot take, and really I've been going back and forth between this comparison all year. It all depends on what you value, but defensively, Joel Embiid didn't show that he wasn't as good a defender as I thought, especially in the NBA playoffs this year. He's probably a top 20 defender at best, and usually what separated Embiid from Jokic, in my opinion, was the defensive gap, but there's also a gap here with playmaking. We know Jokic is one of the best playmakers in the league, averaging 9 assists per game this season, which is insane for a big man, and top 6 in the league in box creation, with I believe around a 14 box creation, which is insane for a big man. And the playmaking gap here, Joel Embiid basically has no playmaking aspects to his game offensively and has no off-ball game either, so the gap there is what is going to separate Jokic from Embiid here, in my opinion. But again, Jokic is pretty much average at best defensively and not very good in the pick and roll, and Embiid is pretty good defensively, so it's a very close comparison. It could really go either way, but because of Jokic's playmaking, I'm going to go with him here. So there you have it. That's the end of this video and the end of my top 10 of each position ranking series. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be releasing not only a mock draft 2 days from now, my second mock draft before the NBA draft, but also I'm probably going to be releasing my big top 50 list of overall every player in the NBA in the top 50 in probably 2 parts, so stay tuned for that. But this is the end of the ranking series. If you haven't already, be sure to, if you want, check out some of the other ranking videos I've made. Like I mentioned, I posted my top 10 point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, and power forwards prior to this video, so go check those out as well. Comment down below your thoughts on today's video and what you think of the ranking of the centers currently in the NBA. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next video.